Kirk Douglas was caught breaking into a movie studio at 3 in the morning. Security had him surrounded, flashlights in his face, hands in the air, and when they found out what he was carrying, the head of security did something nobody expected. He tore up the incident report and told his men to forget everything they saw. This story stayed buried for 40 years. August 14th, 1963. Paramount Pictures, 3:15 in the morning. Frank DeLuca had been a studio security guard for 22 years. He'd seen everything: drunk actors stumbling out of parties, secret affairs, studio executives doing things they shouldn't. Nothing surprised him anymore. But tonight was different. The silent alarm had triggered at stage 12. Someone had bypassed the main gate and was moving through the lot. Frank grabbed his flashlight and radio, signaled to 2 other guards, and headed toward the soundstage. They found the intruder inside the costume warehouse. "Freeze! Don't move." The flashlight beams caught a figure in dark clothes, hunched over one of the costume racks. The figure straightened slowly, turned around. Frank's jaw dropped. "Mr. Douglas." Kirk Douglas stood in the beam of 3 flashlights, hands raised, caught red-handed. "Evening, gentlemen." Kirk's voice was calm, casual, as if being caught breaking into a movie studio was perfectly normal. Frank kept his flashlight trained on Kirk's face. "Sir, what are you doing here?" "It's 3 in the morning. The studio is closed. I'm aware of the time." Frank noticed Kirk was holding something. A garment bag, heavy, like it contained something substantial. "What's in the bag, Mr. Douglas?" Kirk didn't answer. Frank stepped closer. "Sir, I have to ask you to show me what's in the bag. You're trespassing on studio property. I could have you arrested." Kirk looked at Frank for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Can we speak privately?" Frank hesitated, looked at his 2 fellow guards, looked back at Kirk. "Sir, I need to see what's in the bag first." Kirk's jaw tightened. It's for a child." Frank blinked. "Excuse me?" Kirk lowered his hands slowly. "There's a boy, 11 years old. Huge fan of mine. He's been writing me letters for 2 years. His name is Marcus, and he's—" Kirk's voice cracked slightly. "He's dying. Leukemia. Doctors give him a few weeks." The guards exchanged glances. Kirk continued. "His mother wrote me last week. Said Marcus's only wish is to see a real Spartacus costume. The one I wore in the movie? He watches it every day. It's the only thing that makes him forget the pain." Frank lowered his flashlight slightly. "So you broke in here to steal a costume?" "It's not stealing." Kirk's eyes flashed. "That costume exists because of me, because I produced that film, because I fought for that film when every studio in Hollywood said no." Kirk held up the garment bag. "I asked the studio to loan it to me for 1 week, just 1 week, so a dying child could see it, touch it, feel like a gladiator for a few hours before he dies." Kirk's voice turned bitter. "You know what they said? They said no. Too valuable. Insurance liability. Couldn't risk damage." Frank was silent. "So yes." Kirk stepped toward Frank. "I broke in here at 3 in the morning to take a costume so an 11-year-old boy can die with a smile on his face. If you want to arrest me for that, go ahead. Call the police. Call the press. I don't care." The soundstage was completely silent. Frank DeLuca had worked at Paramount for 22 years. He had a rulebook in his pocket that told him exactly what to do in this situation. Call the police, file a report, let the lawyers sort it out. But Frank also had a son, 12 years old, loved movies, loved Spartacus. Frank looked at his 2 fellow guards. "You 2, wait outside." They hesitated. Now, they left. Frank turned back to Kirk. His flashlight was off now. They stood in darkness. "My boy has that poster," Frank said quietly. "Spartacus. It's on his wall. He watches your movies every weekend." Kirk didn't respond. Frank took a breath. "How long do you need the costume?" Kirk blinked. "What? The costume. How long do you need it?" Kirk stared at him. "A week, maybe less. The boy doesn't have much time." Frank nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the incident report he'd started filling out. Then deliberately, he tore it in half. Kirk watched in silence. Frank tore it again, and again, until it was nothing but confetti. "This never happened," Frank said. "You were never here. I never saw you." Kirk's eyes were wet. Frank held up his hand. "I've worked here 22 years. 22 years of doing everything by the book, following every rule, protecting studio property like it was sacred." He looked at Kirk. "But property isn't sacred, Mr. Douglas. People are. A dying kid is sacred. And if this studio can't understand that, then the hell with their rules." Kirk extended his hand. Frank shook it. "Now get out of here," Frank said, "before someone else comes by, and give that boy the best damn week of his life." Kirk nodded. Left through the back entrance. Vanished into the night. Marcus Chen was 11 years old. He'd spent 3 years fighting leukemia. The cancer was winning. 2 days after Frank DeLuca tore up that incident report, Kirk Douglas appeared at Marcus's house in Pasadena. He was carrying the Spartacus costume. Marcus couldn't believe it. He touched the leather armor, the sword, the cape. He asked Kirk 1,000 questions. What did it feel like to wear it? How heavy was the sword? Did he really fight those battles? Kirk answered every question, for hours. Then Kirk did something that wasn't part of any plan. "Want to try it on?" Marcus's eyes went wide. "Can I?" Kirk helped the frail boy into the costume. It was way too big. Marcus was swimming in it, but he didn't care. He stood in front of the mirror, barely able to hold the sword up, and whispered, "I am Spartacus." Kirk had to leave the room. He couldn't let Marcus see him cry. Marcus wore that costume every day for the next 2 weeks. He slept in it. He ate in it. His mother said he wouldn't take it off. On August 29th, 1963, Marcus Chen died. He was wearing the costume. Kirk attended the funeral, sat in the back, didn't tell anyone who he was. After the service, Marcus's mother found him. She didn't say anything. She just handed him an envelope. Inside was a letter. Marcus had dictated it to his mother the day before he died. "Dear Mr. Douglas, thank you for being Spartacus. Thank you for making me brave. I'm not scared anymore. You told me that Spartacus wasn't afraid of death because he knew what he was fighting for. Now I know what I'm fighting for too. I'm fighting to be remembered, just like Spartacus. When I die, I'm going to meet all the gladiators in heaven. I'm going to tell them I met the real Spartacus. They're going to be so jealous. Thank you for the costume. It made me feel strong. I am Spartacus. Love, Marcus." Kirk kept that letter in his desk for the rest of his life. 40 years later, in 2003, Frank DeLuca was dying. Lung cancer. He was 78 years old. A reporter heard about Frank's career at Paramount and came to interview him for a book about old Hollywood. Frank told stories about the Golden Age, the stars he'd met, the scandals he'd covered up, the secrets he'd kept. Then, at the end of the interview, Frank said, "There's one more story, one I've never told anyone." The reporter leaned in. Frank told him about the night Kirk Douglas broke into Paramount Pictures, about the Spartacus costume, about the dying boy, about tearing up the incident report. "Why are you telling me this now?" the reporter asked. "Because I'm dying," Frank said, "and I want people to know what Kirk Douglas did. Not the movies, not the awards. This, a man breaking into a studio at 3 in the morning to steal a costume for a dying child. That's who Kirk Douglas really was." Frank died 3 weeks later, The reporter tracked down Marcus Chen's mother, now 84 years old. She confirmed the story. She still had the letter Marcus had written. The reporter published the story in 2004. It went viral before viral was a word. Reporters called Kirk for comment. Kirk refused to talk about it. His publicist pushed him. "This is an incredible story. It makes you look like a hero." Kirk shook his head. "I didn't do it to look like a hero. I did it because a kid was dying and the world wasn't fair. Frank DeLuca is the hero. He risked his job to let me walk out with that costume." Kirk paused. "And Marcus is the hero. He fought for 3 years. He never gave up. He died wearing armor like a warrior. That's not a sad story. That's a story about courage." The publicist asked if Kirk wanted to donate the costume to a museum. Kirk shook his head. "It's not mine to donate. It belongs to Marcus. I buried it with him. And sometimes, if you look closely at the old photographs from Hollywood's golden age, you can still see it. Not the fame, not the awards, but the look in a man's eyes when he chose principle over comfort." Kirk Douglas played tough guys on screen, but off-screen, he was tougher. In an industry built on pretending, his courage was the only real thing that lasted. Is there a moment in your life where you wish someone had stood up for you? Or a moment where you stood up for someone else? Hollywood has many secrets, but these are the ones worth telling. If you want to know the real stories, the ones they didn't put in the magazines, you're in the right place. We are peeling back the curtain on the man who never bent. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Kirk Douglas, the man who never bent. We are just getting started. There are stories about Bert, about Spartacus, and about the moments that defined a legend. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in Kirk's position? I'll see you in the next video. Never bend.